Yes, sir. Mr. President, sir.
It's October 24th, 2016. We'll go ahead and start our board meeting with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome all our guests here this evening. Thank you for being here. ¿Hay alguna persona que necesita traducción al español? Gracias, Carmela. Awesome. Moving on to item A2, or A3, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
I have a question.
Okay.
If I want to propose that we pull an item from general consent and add it to an agenda item later, would I need to do that now as part of the agenda? Because we're changing the agenda too?
I believe so.
I think that would be the most appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on just a second. Okay. So I move to approve tonight's agenda with the removal of consent item. I think it'll need to be C15 and C16 because they're in one attachment together. And place that item under item G1 for after the staff evaluation. Or it could be F2, I don't know.
I think that we wouldn't have to pull them both because that's just information about it, but the actual approval is one page and the other. We shouldn't have to pull them both, I wouldn't think.
Okay. Which one was which?
I think C16 is the one that would, no, it'd be classified. I think they're maybe backwards in there. No,
That's why
C15.
That's why I was moving them both. I figured it'd be easier.
C15 is the one. Yeah, which I think either way works, but I just don't know if it would.
Yeah, I'll just leave my motion as it is.
I second that.
So motion's been made by Director Ashton to approve this evening's agenda with the removal of item C15 and added to
C15 and C16.
So C15 and C16. And then added to, is it G1?
Yes.
And then move all the other items down one number. Seconded by Director Simmons. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item B1, citizens request to speak. And there is no request this evening. Moving on to item C1, I will entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda with the changes reflected from the previous motion by Director Ashton.
Motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve this evening's consent agenda with the corrections that have been made.
A second.
Seconded by Director Mike Garza. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C2, Superintendent Report.
Yes, for Superintendent report, we have Pete Perez is going to first speak about a report on visible learning. Yes, sir.
We had a good opportunity to attend a conference on visible learning, some research done by John Hattie that Dr. Hurst has shared with us since he's been on campus in the district with us. It's not about images or imaging, but I'm going to tell you the story in just about 5 minutes through images, just to give you an initial taste about what we saw. So pretty iconic image on the left of Wilt Chamberlain. And one of the stories that was shared at this conference was that in that particular game, Wilt Chamberlain shot his free throws underhand, and he made a much higher percentage than he typically did. And he knew that he could perform better if he shot underhand, but he didn't like sort of the public impression of shooting a granny shot, so he didn't do it, even though he knew it made more sense. And what I liked about what we heard about visible learning, and a similar image that Dr. Hurst has shared with you, is the ideas about transforming the community and the district are going to require some actions that are very different, that feel like a granny shot for some people. And this was a way to sort of assess the activities and actions that we're going to take as a system. I'm not moving, Sheree. All right. I'm not sure if you've all seen the movie Moneyball. Not a movie that I had a chance to see, but the story behind it is that this gentleman, I think his name is Billy Beane, worked for the Oakland A's, and he developed a system about what really makes a difference to win baseball games. And it wasn't about home run hitters or outstanding pitchers. What really made a difference was how often you got on base. And so they spent their money in a way that they supported athletes who got on base more often than not, and it proved to be a successful formula for them. And Hattie has a very similar structure. He looks at the research that says what really makes a difference for students and for teachers. And for the bottom line for principals while we were there, it wasn't about going to learn about a new program. This is not a new program. It's just a new way to view our work and to encourage our staff and our community to let them know that it's not to tell us we're doing a bad job, but that we're going to do things even a little bit better. Because what Hattie found in his research, and if you look over here, the stats that he puts out, is that 95% of what happens in school has a positive effect on student achievement. Just some things make a dramatically more significant impact. A nice connection that we noticed initially at the conference was the principals and cabinet level folks here at the district office have been engaged in a book study around the 5 dimensions of student-centered leadership. Dr. Hurst has been leading us through that activity, and in the initial pages of that text, you'll see this chart that talks about the effect size of some of the concepts discussed in that book. And so it was nice to have that reinforcement at the Visible Learning Conference about the work that we're engaged in here at Othello. One of the common tools that you're going to see in Hattie's research is this idea about effect size and that concept that the board has shared for several years around 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. And we're really looking for activities that are in that blue zone, the zone of the desired effects, that actually show more than 1 year's growth in a year's time for students in our system. A key component there was about conversations that we have with students and teachers about achievement and progress, and we like the simplicity of this quadrant. This is really about those quartiles when we've talked about students in the past about are they really making progress and where do they fit, and developing a culture that allows students to answer those questions. Where am I going? How am I doing? And where am I headed next? It's just a lens to look at the work, again, not a new program or idea. Sort of the theme of the work is embedded in Mindframe 1 that Hattie puts out, and that's to evaluate the effect of my teaching on students' learning and achievement. So know thy impact. What's the impact of the strategy or technique or decisions that I'm making as an instructor? And we have to evaluate the activities that we're engaged in as a system through that lens, through those high impact, high leverage activities. Next steps for us was to share the professional learning with the OSD admin team. That's coming up here next week. Certainly it's going to take continued teacher and administrator learning and professional development to keep the initiative rolling forward. We have to reference the research when filtering activities in our own structure, and that's been part of the strategic vetting process from day one. We also are going to identify high-impact teaching practices and support the district priorities. We already have an established instructional vision and some pretty clear priorities, and we're going to look for high-impact activities that support those. We're going to lead professional learning in our own system around those high-impact practices, and then ultimately it's about changing the learning lives of our students and making sure that we can impact their achievement and their learning in a positive way. Aside from the sort of content of the conference, it was a nice opportunity to have the principals engaged in a specific activity just for them. pull away just for 2 days. It's a busy time, certainly during the year, but to have that opportunity to connect as colleagues was valuable as well. So we appreciate the board's support with that.
Thanks, Pete. Any questions from the board?
No, it looks really good.
Thank you.
We also wanted to pull up a card that was shared by a student. Can you pull up that card, please? If we remember this student, Jacob Reisenman, he came to the board and asked for the Board of Education, Board of Directors to approve him at Hiawatha to do this map. So he just sent the Board of Education a thank you note. So we wanted to just share that with the board and the public also. If you can pull up the PowerPoint. So I wanted to share this with the Board of Directors also. The first diagram, there you go. This was shared with the board when I was first hired for Othello School District Superintendent. And if you remember, I talked about a framework that was broken down to 3 elements: organizational, teaching, and instruction. And we presented this in a way and shared that this aligned with the global ends and also our strategic priorities. I've shared this with principals. I've shared this also with associate superintendents and executive directors. But what we have also learned is that this was a little bit too much to digest at one time. So what we did is we took apart some elements of this vision, this direction that was going to get us to the ends, and we synthesize it in the following slides I'm going to share with you. So if you can go to the next slide. So we said if we had to look at those 3 bubbles and take out key elements, this is what it would look like for Othello over the next few years. And again, this is all designed to get us to our ends, the 3 ends that we have. So this is a pipeline of services. So thinking of early childhood education all the way through college and career, and also global preparation and global competency. What you see at the very bottom level, you see family, social services, and health services. This is not something that is new. You have a number of promise organizations or promise districts across the nation that's actually using this model. But we're going to make it our model. One of the things I really like about this is it serves the entire family unit. It serves the parents, it serves the students also. So imagine in Othello over the next few years or several years that we have support services to our families, our moms, our fathers, our guardians, and we're providing them family, social services, health support services, mental support services also. But also imagine in Othello we have community programs or community centers in the middle of Othello, and we're servicing them, not just with that top level, but also with their social life also, so community building. Going to the next slide, and what I've done, if you look at this pipeline of services, you see that it's broken down in different colors, so I'm going to talk about each one of them individually. So this one would be the early literacy stage. So imagine over the next several years that we really focused on literacy for our students from age 0 through age 4. One of the things I do know in Visible Learning Conference, they talked about the 30 million word gap. So those students who come from households and their parents aren't reading to them, they come to school already behind. So I've already shared with teachers and administrators, that's the root cause right there. That's where we solve the issue. We make sure that our students are ready to interact right when they get to kindergarten. So we close that 30 million word gap. How do we do that? We look at age 0 and we make sure that we are reading to our kids in a structured way. And again, there are different districts across our nation that are having high success. One in particular, Harlem Children's Zone, 99% success rate where their students are entering kindergarten ready to engage. Go to the next, hit the next button. So imagine also in Othello we have year-round, full-day pre-kindergarten for our 4th grade. So something very specific with our 0 through 3, and then something very specific with our 4-year-olds, which is undergirded by high level professional development. There you go. So none of this will happen if we're not training our teachers and our administrators and our leaders at the district office in building capacity. Go to the next slide. Hit the first one and the next one. So this is key. When you look at global competency, I know that is one of our big ends. There is a framework that we will go over the next few years where we talk about what is global competency, what does it look like for our students. If you look at the very top of that, it says we want our students to investigate the world. We want them to recognize not just our own perspectives here in Washington or Othello, or not even just in the United States, but looking at perspectives across the globe. That's what makes students globally competent. And we want them to be able to communicate their ideas, not just, again, locally, but globally. And we want our students to take action and solve real-world problems. So imagine that portion where it says global competency, that's the lens through which we're going to look through everything. So what I explained to associate superintendents and the principals, this is like Common Core on steroids. So it's a different way of presenting our curriculum. So when we talk about global competency and reaching that in, this is how we're going to do that over the next few years. Go ahead and click the next several slides. Right there, just stop right there. So what we want to do in Othello is really focus on skill development, because if we focus on skill development, our students will be able to leave being able to work anywhere. So we focus in elementary school on the foundational skills, or I'm sorry, just the skill development. So we're looking at the critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, curiosity, and communication. Foundational skills, really key. We can't dismiss those. One of the key things we want to see in Othello is STEM across the board. So you'll see that over the next several years. One of the things I just want to make sure I point out here, you see world languages, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that our students leave here acquiring more than just one language. There's a lot of research on improving student learning once you acquire more than one language. So we want to make sure that happens. And we want to look also at PE a little differently, and maybe not PE. We want to look at nutrition. So looking at exercise and nutritional science in our curriculum. And then one of the things I shared with you when I was first hired also, this concept of pathways. I've since been exposed to research, different research, which has really changed my mind about pathways. And instead of pathways, we'll just really relegate our students to a certain area, region. But we want our students to be globally prepared. So we're looking at exposing them to integrated projects. And eventually you'll see global pathways, and I'll talk about that in a second. So you'll see here integrated projects. We want to expose our students and our teachers to design thinking. What is that? What is a maker space? What is a thinker space? And not just project-based learning, but problem-based learning, where they're really solving real-world problems. Next slide. And one more. So this is the same thing. Again, at every level, we're going to keep the same lens. It'll, again, be beyond Common Core. It'll be global competency. We'll continue to expand or expound upon the skill development for our students. So you see building entrepreneurs. We're also doing a deeper dive into the projects. So we're exposing our students in elementary school, but we're doing a deeper dive, and even as they're preparing to go into high school, we want them to capture a portfolio, electronic portfolio presentation, that they will be ready to then go into high school and say, okay, now I can go into this global pathway based on all of my experiences from elementary through middle school. I don't want to underestimate down there at the bottom where it says high quality professional learning. Again, just want to reiterate how are we going to get there by building capacity with our administrators, with our teachers, and with everyone at the district office level also. The last slide. Again, we always want to keep the lens of global competency around that framework. Again, that is a game changer for us, the way we do business. Continue to develop skills, continue to add skills, so networking, but there may be more skills added. So this is a first draft at expanding upon that vision I shared at the first slide. We still have the foundational skills that we'll keep, STEM across the board for all of our students. But then by the time they get to high school, we're going into global pathways. And the difference, again, is regular pathways is based on industry sectors that's relegated to a specific region, like Othello or Washington State. So the question becomes, do we want our students to graduate and just get jobs in industry sectors in Washington State? Of course not. We want them to be globally competitive. So we're looking at global pathways. So what are those industry sectors across the globe for our students? And again, it's undergirded by high quality professional learning. So that's something exciting. We're having those conversations. At the last board meeting, I talked about strategic planning. So we've already initiated those conversations and reached out to individuals. And again, we know we have a strategic priorities, strategic plan, but this is specifically dealing with teaching and learning in the classroom. So we're very excited about the direction. Wanted to share that with the board.
Chris, what is VAPA?
VAPA of Visual and Performing Arts.
Yep. Nice, sir.
Exciting. Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Moving on to item C3, director discussions. I always ask if there's a legislative report or not. I know that we're waiting for legislation to be in session, but I think there was a few things mentioned at our regional meeting that we'll share at a later time, though.
Yeah, as I read through that, I think, and Tony had asked me a little bit about it, ESSA, so that's something that apparently you guys found some information about in the regional meeting. And obviously that's something that the state's going to be presenting their plan to be compliant with that. But I expect soon I'll have more information we bring into the board. And also after the WASDA conference, I'm sure I'll be getting some good information there that I'll be able to share after that.
Awesome. Student representative report.
Okay, so this last week was homecoming week, and we had a lot of attendance. We had hallway decorations on Mondays, so that got our school really pumped up. We had the volleyball game, powder puff, movie night, and then we had the dance. There's a lot of spirit, a lot of great attendance, and I think part of that is to do with our sports. Our football team is currently tied for first with Ellensburg, and so is our volleyball team. Then our soccer team is co-league champs right now. And then everyone's getting really anxious for midterms, so that's going on. But during homecoming week, one of the biggest nervous caused everyone, especially leadership kids, was the field, because we had so many things like powder puff. We had the Husky Olympics planned on the field, and everything had to be changed last minute. And we didn't even know if the game was going to be on that field until 2 days before or the day before. So that was really stressful. But otherwise, everything's going good right now.
Awesome. Thanks for that report. You good, Kiara?
How did the dance go? Did you guys both go to the dance?
Yeah, I liked it. It was really fun.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, moving on. NSBA conference. You guys there's an attachment for the National School Board Association conference that is in, I believe, March of next year. And so I wanted to include this flyer because if you are thinking of attending this conference, we want to register as soon as possible. So please let me know as soon as you know whether you will be attending this conference. I believe it's March the 25th through the 27th is the dates of the conference. And so I believe we can start registering as of a few days ago. And so let me know as soon as you find out so that then we can make arrangements. Any questions?
Yeah, do you know if there's any, so if we were to register now, could a registration be canceled without penalty till a certain time, do you know? Or is it penalized right off the bat?
I have no idea.
There's a cancellation time on here. I can't remember when it was, so.
For me personally, I mean, I always get good information from WASDA every year, but going to this national conference was for me, it was huge to get all those differing perspectives from nationwide rather than just the state. And I would say that at least I feel like there was more policy changes, discussions, and additions than any other conference we've gone to as a board. So I got a lot of value out of it. So right now I'm interested in it, but I also know it's a long ways away. So housing was a big deal. I mean, we had to stay by the airport,
Yes.
and quite a ways away from the conference last time because we registered late. But
So that's why I've included it so early, is because the earlier we register, the more secure.
Yeah, you
our
can't get the
housing will be.
discounted housing until you register. I know I read that
Yeah.
on there.
yeah, that's one of the keys.
Any other questions or comments?
I have it blocked in my calendar. I'm planning on going. I was just trying to look for the date if I registered when I could cancel.
It's nice that it's closer too, for sure.
Yes. Great. So just let me know as soon as you find out. And I'm going to keep this in announcements for the next few board meetings, just to remind you guys. Moving on. Director Ashton has an introduction to board meetings going live, and so if you could explain that to us.
Really, I just wanted to have a discussion about it. I don't know how easy or difficult it would be. I talked to Glenn a little bit before. In your mind, everything's always easier than it is in reality. But basically, what my thought is that we've discussed in the past of having our board meetings recorded, video recorded. And last time we discussed it, when we first got board docs, it was too expensive at that time. And I don't know if there's more cost-effective ways to do it now. But that was my thought, to bring it up and start the discussion. I by no means think we should just snap our fingers and say let's have it by the next board meeting. But Glenn did tell me that Big Bend Ute has been doing it. They're on board docs as well. Sounds like they've had some challenges from what he understands. But for me, it'd just be nice to get more information on it. Working towards maybe doing some kind of a video thing, if the board feels like it's something we want to have somebody look into.
Board?
So you're specifically talking about a live presentation, not necessarily one that's recorded that people can look at later.
That was my initial thought, but I don't know how difficult it is. Just in this 2-minute conversation with Glenn, he brought up some things that I hadn't thought of. Do you point it at the board? How do you, if somebody comes to give a presentation, how do you turn it and do stuff like that? For me, the reason to do it would be to find other ways to get more community members involved in what the board's doing. That would be my sole intention of doing it, would be that. So if there's not a way to get it so that we can involve community members, I know there's people that I talk to that they'd love to come to board meetings, but they have kids at home, they have other things so they can't come to a board meeting. But if there was a way that we could get it into their homes where it wasn't a burden for them to see what's going on, I think there'd be more participation and probably more communication with the board members and Dr. Hurst, because people would be more informed. But that's just my thought behind it.
I guess my question would be, if we are on live and there are community members that are staying at home for various reasons and not coming to a board meeting, how would we then make sure that the monolingual community is understanding what's happening at this board meeting? And so I'm not sure how that would work, but those are things that I think we could look into and see if it's something that we can work out.
Yeah, for me, the first thing would be, okay, can it be done? If it can be done, what's the cost? It's all a trade-off. If it costs a ton of money every meeting and it doesn't work, then there's no reason to do it. But I think we'd take a long while. It might take a little while to get all the information and options.
Yes. Well, I'm open to information, at least for now. How do the other board members feel about that?
I agree. And as far as the monolingual, we have somebody at the meeting, perhaps they're in a corner
Just
talking
translating.
into a microphone as it's being transmitted, and our monolingual could get the gist of the meeting as well. I mean, I agree that we should at least look into it.
So I wonder if it wasn't just live, it was just video and not live, if it would have any more impact on getting our community to be more involved any more than our audio currently does. So I think I'm more interested in the live part because that makes sense to me. People watching it as it's happening. It would be really interesting if this could happen, if we could even take questions during community input in that format. That would be interesting.
And I don't know all the different ways. I know how Facebook Live works, but other than that, I don't know how the other what other venues there are.
I'd like to hear more about it, if there's ways it can be done.
So my next question then, Dr. Hurst, would be, is there someone that can get us that information? And
Yeah, we have to send out an email. Stuff.
and then, wonderful. Any other discussion? Okay, moving on. As you have noticed, there is 2 documents included in our director discussions dealing with SSA, and SSA is an acronym that stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, and so this is something that Director Mike Garza and Director Tony Ashton and myself were able to go to a regional meeting, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and received all the information. And I believe ESSA is something that is going to be replacing NCLB or something like that. And so there is some dates, as you noticed, that are attached to the to our director discussions on tours that are going to be taking place regarding ESSA. And so if you can look at that flyer, I believe there's 4 tours available. November 14th at Highline, November 15th at Sela, and November 16th in Spokane. And the November 28th session is a webinar. And so if that is, after attending this regional meeting, I believe that it was important enough for at least a couple board members to try and make one of these tours. It looks like information that we can help give comment and maybe change some things. And so this is just information for you. I don't know if Director Ashton and Mike, you guys have anything
Do you remember, I see the registration required for the webinar. Do you remember if we do the one that's the day of WASDA, if we have to register, or you're going to have enough people?
I believe we have to register for any of those dates.
Because for sure that's the one I want to go to. I want to go to the one that's November 16th. I'm going to be in Spokane for WASDA anyway, so it's
Okay.
Is that then Thursday?
The meeting starts. Technically WASDA starts. That's Wednesday.
Yeah,
It starts Thursday.
There
morning at
is
like
no
7
charge for that
o'clock.
because I've already put it on my agenda for the 16th.
Yeah, I know
there is
there's
no
not.
fee.
I know there's no fee for it.
So that would be kind of a goal then if we're going to do that, to try to get up there by Spokane before
By
6.
6. Yes.
Yeah, so I plan on just taking off work a little early.
Thursday, 16th.
16th is
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday. I'm not going to any of the WASDA pre-meetings, but I just would get there for that.
So great.
Just because Dr. Hurst, I tried to click on the PDF links. I'm not sure if this PDF was maybe a scan, because there's some resources on here. But in the future, if we have any linkable PDFs, if we could save the actual, that would be great, because then I can click on it from there. Thank you.
Great. And if I don't know if Director Garza and Ashton have anything else to add from our regional meeting. I know there was plenty discussed.
Yeah, the lawsuit that's going on was kind of interesting, where is he Superintendent Dorn is suing 7 school districts, which I kind of knew from the spring, but it was interesting to listen to their thoughts about. They're against it, and WASDA's against that lawsuit, but it was interesting listening to them and the financial impact it's having on those. Fortunately, I guess or unfortunately, the districts he sued are big districts with some resources, but the districts had to defend themselves and have to defend themselves financially for something that they had to do because they needed to pay the teachers. But and the state hasn't given us money to be able to pay the teachers the amounts that they want.
Director Ashton, if I'm wrong, but I believe the reason they're being sued is because they're using levy dollars to give teachers raises.
Correct.
And Superintendent Dorn wants to deal with it through McCleary, and so that's the reason for the lawsuit.
Yeah. And so, from WASD's perspective, it's just the way he went about it. They don't disagree with that the state needs to fully fund education so that we can pay our teachers. What he disagreed with is causing such a financial impact to school districts to have to defend themselves in a lawsuit in this political shell game that they're doing at the state. So I thought that was pretty interesting in that meeting. And then the other thing, I think it's coming up, right? The email.
Yeah,
that,
Pasco
wanted to
School
bring up,
District.
but that's further down the line. So
I like the agenda and the diversity of topics, unlike other regional meetings we've attended that weren't so informative. There was people from school board, SBE, OSPI. We had a legislative update. I think he's our legislative rep, Mr. Christensen, and that's what the email discussion will be about. Had a ton of information as well. So it was a very informative meeting. I liked that the agenda was packed with different topics as well.
And the other thing maybe of note is the new OSPI director who took over for Alan Burke had brought up in the meeting from everybody, which I thought was pretty cool. How what a great hire we have in our superintendent in Othello, and how he's already met with him and given him presentations, saved him a bunch of money, I guess, because they were going to California to meet with Dr. Hurst anyway in Oceanside, and so now they got to do it here locally. So anyway, it was pretty cool to get recognized as Little Othello, and they were really impressed with Dr. Hurst and
So
what he can do. We are too.
And next, if you've noticed, I've attached an email. Director Area 11, which is part of our area, we have been invited by Steve Christensen of the Pasco School District and Brian Brooks of the Kennewick School District for an opportunity to discuss education funding ideas with school directors and neighboring districts. The purpose for this discussion is to bring to the next legislative session specific director area ideas as to what to do with McCleary money. So the invitation has been made to us. I think it would be extremely important for at least one of our board members to attend. But it's the meeting is Thursday, November 3rd at 6 p.m. And so if you are interested in participating in this meeting with other directors in our area, then please let me know so that I can let them know the number of directors that will be attending from Othello. So I think it's vitally important for us to be a part of this. Any other comments?
At this point, I'm planning on going. The only question I have is just to make sure that if you think there's going to be a quorum, then we need to provide public notice.
Right.
So just so you know, Juan, I think this is something that I'd really like to be at and should be at as the legislative rep. I won't be in town that day. I'm leaving that morning out of town, so I won't be able to. But I look forward to hearing the discussions that went on there.
Okay. So for the other board members, if you're interested, please let me know. And
Unfortunately, that's the football game. We play Owensburg.
We play on Thursday.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'll still go. I'll watch. I can watch it later on Facebook Live.
Great. Awesome. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Moving on to item D1, assurance of organizational performance.
I just want to add just a quick thing. I'm assuming I should talk about this under directive discussion, but we're having some issues with our football field. And in fact, it's mentioned that we almost didn't play last home game homecoming game here because of the condition of our field. And I just want to make sure that board members are aware of it, and hopefully that we need to take some steps to correct it so that we don't have this
I
issue.
thought we were already scheduled to do some extensive maintenance in the spring.
Yeah, what maintenance?
Pretty extensive. Gina could probably comment on what we decided that.
I thought we decided it,
So-
maybe we didn't.
We have, but,
That's a priority.
so I think there's probably going to be, not I think, there's probably going to be a board workshop in the near future that's going to deal with facilities. Is we have had a preliminary design meeting this last week with, so we being Orland, Dawn, myself, and Architects West, and a project manager, and then a gentleman from Royal, Kent Anderson, who was involved, lives still in Royal, and so is pretty knowledgeable about the AstroTurf field that went in out there. And then another architect who actually was the design architect for the field that went in Moses Lake. So that meeting really was structured with the purpose of, we're going to have two different budgets. I'm going to have two different budgets and timelines, pros and cons, benefits to bring to the board at a workshop, because basically, do we want to invest a certain dollar amount to just tear out and replace grass, or to remove and replace with artificial turf? So that basically information, after tomorrow, I think Dr. Hurst will be in touch with the board as far as scheduling a facility workshop.
I I know it's not in Othello, but the weather was pretty similar. I was pretty impressed with how good a shape Connell's field was. I went and watched the Connell Royal game, and it had something to do with the crowning that they have in that field, where we have issues with that, I've heard. But when they played that, then after all that rain, the field really looked good. So I think the grass can survive in this area if all the conditions are right. But,
I think one of the things
that's a
too
big issue.
that's being looked at is what's underneath our field, because there's evidently the old high school used to be out there somewhere, and so there's some concern about actual foundation under there that might be keeping the water from being able to drain. I don't know. I'm just repeating what was told to me. So again, there'll be more information made available to bring to the board.
Since you brought that up, facilities meetings, do we know when the facilities meet, the main facilities group is getting back together to continue their discussions?
That will be provided after. Dr. Hurst and I were going to meet last Thursday and for a regular scheduled meeting. There were some things that came up that kind of trumped that meeting that were more of a priority. So we're meeting tomorrow, correct?
Yes, we are.
So again, I believe after tomorrow we'll have a little bit more information to provide on next steps for that.
Okay.
So just to add to meetings then, I know that, this year is going to be another levy year for us, and I just want to make sure that we as a board are being proactive with conversations coming up to, I believe it's usually early December when we have to have, so
Yes.
I know you're thinking and on. I just want to make sure that you're giving us a real good heads up about when we need to have some meetings to start discussing that stuff.
So I do have actually in front of the timeline from actual ballot mail out all the way back to the calculations I'm already working on. And that's another item in the meeting with Dr. Hurst tomorrow that again will result in probably a combined board workshop. Tentatively thinking the week of the 7th, 8th, and 9th, somewhere around there in November. The December 12th board meeting will be the date we need to have a resolution approved so that I can get it to Adams County to have it filed. So between now and then, as far as having one or if two, whatever is necessary for board workshops.
So should we be going ahead and scheduling a workshop date then, knowing that?
That's a bad idea.
And then if you need to change it, we can change it later while the board's here.
So that, because I think I'm kind of a key member of that meeting, the week of the 7th, I'm available.
The
Pretty
7th is a bad day, but for me.
Well, the week of the 7th is open. The following week, I'm not here.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe
Okay.
want to get it in our schedule. I could do it the 8th or the 9th or the 10th, just not the 7th, unless it was before 5.
8th or 10th would work for me.
9th or 10th for me.
8th or 9th for me.
So it sounds like the 9th.
Without me.
Did you say the 9th doesn't work?
I said
for you?
8th or 10th, yeah.
Oh, crap.
I could do the 9th, it just have to be later.
What's
Can
later?
everyone do 8?
Like 7.
Oh, they can't.
It wouldn't be able to be at 6 o'clock. At the office till 6:30 or
7? How
So
long
the
do you think
9th.
it'll take?
I don't think more than an hour.
I'm okay with 7,
Just
as
7.
long as it doesn't go to like 11 or something.
We could probably even, if you want to do like a 6:30 dinner or something.
So the
With the
9th.
meeting
So-
at 7.
Wednesday, November 9th at 6:30. We'll have dinner for a half hour and then begin the workshop at 7 o'clock sharp. Please note that in your calendars.
Just one more thing. Are we going to have a timeline for our rebidding the tennis courts in that meeting too?
I don't know
Already
if
pretty well.
that workshop or the facility workshop, I don't know if we're going to be combining them, but the facility workshop should address tennis court rebidding, discussion on football field, and then the,
So this one's just for levy, you're thinking?
I'm open.
If we could, for me,
Sounds like he wants to make it till 11.
We can do both.
for me.
Dr.
I'm
Hurst
gonna
said we
show
could
up
do
by
both,
then.
so we probably need a couple hours, should be sufficient. I don't think it would take more than 2.
Maybe plan till 9.
Okay.
So everyone has that? A workshop 6:30 November 9th. And,
You'll get notice, huh?
and yeah, we'll get a notice.
We'll get a notice.
Great, moving on. Oops. Item D1, assurance of organizational performance. We will go over SurveyMonkey EL12. And I believe, and for some reason, as you've noticed, comments were not included in the visual that we have of EL12. So question number 2 on EL12 had 1 not in compliance. And so,
That was me. I know the comment.
okay,
Pretty, not word for word, but
could
I
you
know the gist of it. To me, this basically what this question says is that all required reports would, in the last 12 months, have been submitted on time and by federal and state agencies. And I don't think that, from my memory and my understanding, I don't think for sure the HICAP report was turned in on time. But if the board could correct me on that, that'd be okay.
My understanding, and Pete can speak to this, but there was an understanding that the HICAP plan did not have to be submitted unless there was a major change, and there were discussions about whether or not changes made were major. But it's definitely things being that have been discussed. But
So
one thing I don't know
if it was on time, then I'd change mine to compliance. That
was the
just my
final
understanding.
report though, Pete, was that something that was required, or was that also not usually done?
It's my understanding that final approval has been issued by OSPI, which tells me it was submitted in a timely manner and had been approved by them.
so you'll change that to.
Was I accurate on that, Pete? By the way, with the
Yeah, I think you're-
HICAP plan.
Yes, your interpretation of that is accurate. So the most recent information says that HICAP plans will be reviewed by OSPI and the state during the CPR process, the Consolidated Program Review process, which typically focused on federal programs, but I think they're just in the interest of efficiency and combining activities that it's now falling under that program.
So then that means that every other question in EL12 is in compliance unanimously. Unless there's a question that any board member would like to discuss, we will move on. Okay. Moving on to item D2, EL13, and I believe there was only one question, and that was unanimously in compliance.
I did have a comment on that one.
Okay.
I did do in compliance, President, excuse me. the fact that we're making great strides, but there was still, I know I was at a few meetings where we did not have the translation on site. Just a footnote to Chris and the team that we need to continue the effort to make sure that at every, as the question indicates, opportunity, we do have translations available.
Awesome. Duly noted. Great. Moving on to E1, policy review. And as you recall, at our last board meeting, we decided to keep EL6 in policy review because the changes that were made by a director that was not present. And so there was a question about some of the changes, and so I believe, was it Director Simmons? Did you have that question? I'm trying to remember what it was, but
Yeah, I mean, so I just don't remember the wording, Tony, being salaries that represent established competitive compensation. I thought it said something about the district established or something like that, but I could be wrong. But as I read that, it was just a little vague to me, and I thought your version of it was a little more specific.
Yeah, I can't remember my exact wording from back then.
Do you have the copies of it?
I'm gonna look real quick and see if I can pull them up here.
here's a copy here.
Well, I can see that, but the copy that I wrote, I think is what he's referencing, because I had brought a copy that night. Or I thought we had changed it, but this is Chris's notes. In his notes, he has established underwritten.
Yeah, well, this
Twice
is from
on the committee.
Chris's notes, I think, the one we got here.
Yeah.
If that's what it was, that's
See,
fine. Then I
this
just have
here
a
would have
different
been what I
question.
printed off that night. I'm
So then-
still not sure. I'm not sure that, as I read it now, that necessarily makes sense to me. But that must have been what we had written.
That would be my next question. Is what
So-
exactly does that mean to you?
So while he's thinking of that, Director Simmons, are you saying that we should have district established?
I actually don't have a recommendation for it. I just want to try to understand what exactly that's saying so that I can wrap my head around it.
Do we just take established out? Salaries that represent competitive compensation for all employees.
I think the purpose of the established was to try to assure there's some kind of consistency.
Right,
That's what I remember.
because competitive can mean something different to,
Right, but we gotta word it
So I'm
slightly different. Because established doesn't,
established. I'm not sure that either.
Would it make sense if it said salaries that represent consistent, district established competitive compensation for all employees? Would that make sense?
you repeat that, Director Simmons,
If it
consistent,
said that represent consistent, district established competitive compensation. It's actually, if the district's not establishing the competitive compensation, you're talking about district establishing a formula or some kind of a philosophy,
So
right?
I'm wondering if what if it says salaries represent competitive compensation for all employees based on established district criteria or something like that, and move it around.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's instead of trying to put in all those words all together in the same spot.
could you repeat that, Director Ashton?
Salaries that represent competitive compensation for all employees based upon established district criteria.
Now, that makes sense to me, and I think I can explain that if someone asks me what that means. That,
I'm still struggling with the established criteria. Why not just district criteria?
instead of established, you could put written. For me, I would just like it to be something that's, to me, established means it's something that's consistent and it's written down
So
that
does it
everybody
change from one
knows.
situation to the next?
So that from my mind, it would be when Dr. Hurst shows compliance with this, he would be saying, here's our established criterion for competitive wages.
Written might be a better
Maybe
word to
written is
accomplish what
fine.
you're saying, because then,
But-
because established could be established in someone's mind, but not written down anywhere. Good point. Yeah, I like
So-
written better myself.
So one more time, just repeat that so that we get it right.
You better have Chris repeat it. You've been writing it down.
Okay.
So we have, fail to recommend for board approval salaries that represent competitive compensation for all employees based on written district criteria.
I'm okay with that.
Any comments?
What does that
Is
mean
that
to
good?
you, Dr. Hurst?
And it has to be written some policy, and then we're following that.
Was that your intent, Tony?
Do we want to say district policy? Instead of just policy?
That's what you said, wasn't
He
it?
did say district, yeah.
I thought he said,
District criteria.
he did say district policy.
District criteria
District criteria.
instead of
Okay, he just says policy whenever you wrote.
well,
So whose policy? Is it the board policy or is it?
well, the board's
Or we
policy is
could-
what's written. We could.
make a policy if we wanted to, but right now we don't have one.
I'm okay with Dr. Hurst figuring out what his
Written criteria.
I am
his
too, that's why I
criteria
said-
should
that's
be.
why I'm not sure if we should say district policy.
The board could always decide to have a policy if they want to, though, and that's one thing.
Right.
So I don't know that it matters to say that now. I mean, right now, our intent is that, it sounds like that Dr. Hurst determines that, so.
Okay, so the change has been made. I'll entertain a motion to approve EL6.
I motion to approve EL6 with the changes that have been recorded tonight.
Motion's been made by Director Mike Garza to approve changes on EL6.
Second.
Second by Director Ashton. Discussion?
Yeah, it would be nice to have, even though we're approving it tonight, to have the actual written policy put in the consent agenda, just as informational for the next meeting, just so I can see it one more time. I'm
So if we
cool.
can include EL6 to the next meeting's consent agenda.
Yeah, that's normal practice, right? I think that's, yeah.
So any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to F1, the board will recess into executive session for approximately 15 minutes for the purpose of staff evaluation. So we will break for about 5 minutes for recess.
Hey, Glenn, do you have just a minute?
It is 8:28. We are out of executive session.
8:23. Mr. President.
Sorry, 8:23. We are out of executive session. And we will move on to item G1. And if you recall, we pulled from consent agenda items C1-5 and C1-6 and added it to item G1. So, Director Ashton?
Move to approve items C15 and C16, which would be item G1.
So,
Second.
Director Ashton is motion to approve items C1-5 and C1-6, seconded by Director Simmons. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Now, item G2 is announcements. And just a reminder to all of us, October 25th, tomorrow evening, the board is being asked to please arrive at about 5:30 at Wajitas Elementary. And the presentation will begin right at 6 o'clock. So if the board can appear early and be ready after several speakers, then the board will present the banner. And so be ready to come up and present the banner to Wajitas Elementary. So,
I'm not gonna be here tomorrow
oh, you're not? Okay. Well,
night. I should have been front and center too.
yeah, you
Always wanna
should have
put the
been.
best foot forward.
Why lie? Okay, so for all the other board members, please show up at 5:30, and the presentation will begin right at 6. November 8th, as you've noticed, is our high school visit, and that will begin right at 7:50. So if you can arrive at the high school at about 7:45 a.m., November 8th is our high school visit, and so all the schedule has been is in our board docs, and so you could look at that. Then November 14th is our next regular board meeting at 7 p.m. And then don't forget, November 16th through the 19th is our WASDA conference. And so probably at our next board meeting, which is November 14th, we could discuss transportation to and from. Moving on, item G3, board assessment of meeting, Director Hilmes.
Yes, so the board assessment, today's 10/24/2016, 5 board members are present. General meeting behavior, number one, the agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board, give us commendable. The board followed, number two, the board followed its agenda and did not get sidetracked, give us commendable. The board's deliberation and decision-making processes were public, commendable again. Participation, number four, participation was balanced, all participated. No one dominated. I think we did pretty good tonight, so I'm going to give us commendable on that one. Members listened attentively, avoiding side conversations. Commendable. Governance, section 2, governance principles review. Board actions occurred at the policy level rather at their operational. That's what we did. The board reviews policy about each topic. I'm not sure if that's really applicable tonight. In writing additional policies, the board starts with a broad statement because detailed. That's
We didn't write any additional policies, right?
we didn't. I thought we changed the one policy.
Change. We didn't write any new ones. I've always taken that as writing a new one, but maybe it's a.
So none. Right. The board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meetings. Yes. Board supports the superintendent in any reasonable interpretation. Really didn't happen tonight. You know, I guess we did ask him his interpretation, so yeah, that's true. So overall, I'd mark this commendable.
Thank you, Director Hilmes. If you could just email that to Sherry, that would be wonderful. Moving on to item G4, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Director Simmons to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Ashton. All discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. It is 8:29.